Hey Louise,
Hey Jen.
what are you listening to this week? Welcome to What Are You Listening to This Week, the weekly podcast where we talk about our favorite songs. Some old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by super music fan Luis Guerra. Also, did you know that now on Spotify you can listen to the show with the songs we discuss incorporated? Just search for What Are You Listening to with Music. If you're not listening on Spotify, be sure to give the playlist a listen and then tune into our conversation. With that, let's get started. Luis, what are you listening to this week?
Hey Jen. So this week I'm bringing two songs. The first one that I'm listening to this week is Beyond the Ments by Gus Dapperton.
Wow, so this song was so moving and so cool and by an artist that I'd never heard of. Tell me like how you found this song, why you love it. Like tell me a little bit more about why this was one of your picks this week.
Totally. So Gus actually was a recommendation from one of my best friends. Um, Back when I was just kind of browsing, looking for some music to hear. And it was actually not this song that I heard first. It was another
Okay.
song by Gus, and really fell in love with his character, who he is as a person. And then that's when I stumbled across Beyond the Men's. And Beyond the Men's was just phenomenal, just kind of grasped me and took me in. And what really captured me in that song specifically is the words itself, lyrically, just a great song, very poetic, very melancholic. You can say it's very deep, but
Yep.
the fact that it just sounds like he's alone in a room playing piano and just letting his emotions roll with it, I think that was what really captured me to this song specifically. Even had the opportunity to actually meet Gus in
Oh.
person at some point. So he's a very down to earth guy, a huge character. But yeah, this song specifically just so deep, and you can just tell by the start all the way through, and how he just like creates a melody with his own voice is it's
Mm-hmm.
insane because it takes a lot for you not to have somebody else kind of do some vocals in the back. It's just him himself, and just puts more emotion into the song itself.
I totally agree. And I wrote what you just said. I said this is more like poetry set to music almost for me. You know, if you go in, I talk a lot about lyrics on the show. If you've listened to only one episode, you've probably heard me talk about lyrics. It
Yes.
always comes up. I love it. And so this one was really a special treat in that arena. And because of the show, I think I often have people ask me about musical genres, like, "Oh, Jen, what is the difference between EDM and house or whatever?" And I'm
Yes.
always like trying to think of songs. And to me, I'm like, this is also like a classic example of like bedroom pop to me. You know,
Yes.
like there are so many subgenres. And when I heard this, I'm like, this is the song I'm going to refer people to the next time somebody asks me about bedroom pop. Um,
Oh man.
because I think it's so like it's moody, it's rich, it's sad. I mean, like you were saying, the piano and the strings that kind of come in at the end. I mean, they almost like conjure tears on their own, you know? And
Yes.
like it's so crazy. But then like at the end you can also hear like these birds chirping, which kind of leaves you with this really hopeful vibe, you know? Like after all of this sadness, and I'm going to like give the listeners a little spoiler alert. I think you picked maybe two of the saddest songs I've ever heard, which is great
Oh
because
man.
sometimes you need a good cry. I love
Yeah.
that. And then followed by, like, I picked two kind of amazing love songs that I love. So we brought both for the listeners this week, right? We did. We came
Yes.
with both.
Yes. I totally agree. I think bedroom pop hasn't been such a big thing. So when people bring up names like Clairo and
Hmm.
Mom Tune, I think Gus is just the poster boy for bedroom pop, and
Agreed.
it really is. You can hear it in his voice and his music, the way it's composed, the types of instruments they typically use, piano, very acoustic guitars, and you can just kind of tell it's recorded in a room somewhere. So it definitely
Yeah.
brings out a lot more emotion, and it can tie to a lot of emotions to people personally, right? We can all perceive these songs differently, because like you said at the end, right, very bird chirping and
Hmm.
kind of a hopeful end to it. So it kind of, I think, just comes down to what mood you're in that day or
Yeah.
that week, right? We were listening to these songs these weeks, and I think that just kind of resonates with the song itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And before we jump on to your second pick, I want to say that I also, as I was sort of digging around, like I said, when I find a new artist, I'm always so excited. And I was not familiar with Gus. So I did a little bit of digging and ended up really loving. He had so many great songs, but I loved discovering his version of Pumped Up Kicks, the
Oh
Foster the People
yes,
song. He's got a
yes,
version of it on their
yes, he
Torches
does.
X, like the deluxe edition, and it's different. I mean, it's not like a complete reinvention of the song,
Hmm.
but it's like a bedroom pop version of Pumped Up Kicks, and so
Yes.
that's something. Maybe I'll throw that up on our Instagram feed so that listeners can check that out too. But yeah, Gus Dapperton definitely added to the playlist and will be in rotation.
Thank you, thank you.
So. Well, tell me about your second pick. This was another artist I was not familiar with.
Yes. So the next one is "Glimpse of Us" by Joji. So sorry for bringing two of the saddest songs that you could possibly ever hear. I'm typically in a good mood, like, hey guys, we're gonna listen to some really upbeat music. But I just think that when artists like Joji makes a song, really an emotional ballad, I think it defines the person as an artist, right?
Yep.
And this song specifically, I think it's just when you hear the song, right? I mean, you can hear the vibratos in his voice, same kind of thing, a piano all by himself, making melodies with his own voice. You can hear like the high pitches, the low pitches. He's kind of meshing there. And with Joji, it's funny. So I actually knew Joji as a YouTube comedian. So
Mm-hmm.
he was, I never knew him as an artist per se. He was more so just a jokester of kinds, right? Just making some funny videos on YouTube, and eventually transitioned into music, which people didn't take him as serious, I would say, at first. And the guy can make really, really good sad music. And
Yes.
this song specifically, I feel like anyone can listen to this song, and you can be in the best mood. You can be in the maybe the happiest place in your life and somehow still find a way to feel heartbroken. The pain in just not his voice, but the lyrics itself, it's very like tug and pull, hey, now you're with this person, I'm with this person, but I'm not happy. And you think you find happiness on the other side, right? So just a lot of emotion in this song. And I chose that one specifically because Joji, again, as a person when I knew him, was more so a jokester, and that's what a lot of people know him for. So getting to see this kind of side of him and seeing his growth as an artist, I think this is pretty much the the just kind of pushes you off the edge, like, hey, Joji is now a real artist. Like this song specifically can solidify that. And just really, really happy to see where he's come from and excited about his growth.
Yeah, you know what, it was one of those things where when I started digging around about Joji, and he's a Japanese artist from what I understand,
Yeah.
and I was surprised, like he has a huge following, and I'm like, how does this guy like so popular, and I've never ever heard of him? And I completely agree with everything that you said, like the longing and the melancholy in this song, and I live for a good lyrical trick. Those are my faves, and I think that he delivers a perfect example in this song whenever he says, she'd take the world off my shoulders if it was ever too hard to move. She'd turn the rain to a rainbow when I was living in the blue. Why then, if she's so perfect, do I still wish that it was you? And you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, because you think he's writing this beautiful love song to someone, and he is, but it's not the someone that you think it is. And I'm just like, oh, and then there's a refrain in the song that he keeps repeating that says, "Said I'm fine and said I moved on. I'm only here passing time in her arms, hoping I'll find a glimpse of us." And I was like, oh man, like when somebody delivers something that's just so on the money like that, it's the perfect rebound relationship lyric, right? And we've all been in those situations where you're so broken that you're literally just like looking for a warm body, and you're
Yes.
trying to make it bigger, or you're trying to make it something like it was before with a different person. And I just that's what I loved about the song, is that it's just not, in addition to being beautiful, a beautiful song, it really just completely summarizes that feeling in a perfect way. Like it's and I could also see it too as being like perfect for a breakup montage in a movie. It's like very cinematic in that way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I totally get that vibe. Yeah, this song, if it was just put at the end of a song of a movie, sorry, I think would just be like the perfect combo.
Right?
Very
Yeah.
cinematic. Very, yeah, totally agree with you there.
It is. And then reading too that, he executive produces and arranges a lot of his own music. Like some of the, especially in this song, like the arrangement is kind of complicated, and he melds genres really well, like it's kind of R&B, it's kind of lo-fi, like you get
Yes.
lots of things in it, and it feels like he really moves through genres with ease. And I appreciated that about him as an artist, and then about this song in particular. I just thought it was so good, and like you said, just so sad. The longing just comes across.
Yeah, so sorry about that again.
Well, it's funny because I often have Samer Al-Busabi, who's a co-host of the Super Awesome Mix podcast, on, and when he sends me songs, like it's not weird for me to text him right after and be like, "Sam, are you okay? Like, everything all right?" And so I was like, "Wait a minute, is this from Luis or is this from Samer?" So that's my shout
Yeah.
out there. So I was like, "Well,
Check in
oh."
on your friends. Check in on your
Right.
friends.
Check in on my friends. Well, with that, I kept us kind of in a melancholy space here for my first pick, and then I promise we'll like pick it up at the end, team. But I did go with a song that sounds melancholy, but is actually a really beautiful love song, and it's New Year's Day by the amazing Taylor Swift. So, this is one of my all time favorite love songs. I think that when I think about a relationship or a song that sums up for me, like you were talking about earlier, like different songs mean different things to different people, especially and at different times in their life, right? Or at different
Hmm.
times that they're listening to it. And for me, this paints a perfect picture of a long term relationship, right? That's what it means to be with someone forever. It's that, she has the great lyric in there, "I want your midnights, but I'll be cleaning up bottles with you on New Year's Day," right? Like we all
Yeah.
think about the glory of love and that amazing feeling in the beginning, and you kind of don't think about what it's like to be with someone for years and all of the things that happen in a lifetime. That, like she says, like cleaning up the bottles, like it's super fun to party all night, but then who cleans up the next day? And so I always love that about this song. And I think that again, when we're talking about what we're listening to in a given week, by the time this show releases, we will have the new Taylor Swift album. But I think in anticipation of waiting for that to come out, she's been on my playlist this week, and this song is always a favorite. Tell me if you were familiar with this song, if you knew it. What were your thoughts about this one?
I personally have not heard this song.
Okay.
But funny story, I immediately played this song as soon as you sent me the songs over. Was super eager, honestly, just to hear what you were gonna bring to the table. And I was like, I hope that my sad songs get some kind of bridge to like a happy place. So
Yeah.
this is definitely like you described it perfectly. It sounds very sad. It's again kind of in that melancholic mood, but a very, very nice way of Taylor Swift kind of putting that together. And um, so I hadn't heard this song. My girlfriend actually did, and she's like, "Is that Taylor Swift?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And I never was a huge Taylor Swift fan per se, but I did enjoy her older music. And
Yeah.
when she started redoing all her old albums and just kind of putting in a little bit more of her now person into these songs, revisiting these songs, it's kind of like, okay, we've grown with this. And this song specifically, I think really touched me because what I got from this, and so I actually did a little bit of research on it, and the fact that she wrote it for her boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
at the time, Joe, and
Yeah.
just makes that just kind of ties in even more personally, just because we all go through hard times. Relationships aren't easy, and just what I got from it is, New Year's Day, right? Like, or New Year's Eve, really, because you were there. She's like, I want all your midnights, and you want all that magic, right? In a relationship, you want that magic, but the next day you want to wake up and magic's not there, or that special kind of celebration isn't there. But what are you going to do with that magic after the fact? And going through those hard times, the ups and the downs in a relationship, but knowing that that's your person and that's your partner for life, whether good or bad, right, up and down, you're with that person regardless. Like, hey, I want to pick up these bottles with you the next day. Hey, I want
Yeah.
to go down this road with you. And I think that touches me personally. Like, a relationship goes both ways, and yes, there's going to be some magical moments, but there's also going to be moments where you're kind of picking up some of the baggage from yourself, your partner's side, and just really, hey, this is we're together. At the end of the day, we got this. And
Yep.
I think just the way she brought it, I love the music. The way it was composed was just beautiful. I did hear that other song that she did with Bon Iver, and I thought that was
Yeah.
one
Exile.
of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite songs from that album. And I'm a huge Bon Iver, Novo Amor type of guy. And so when the music came in, I was just like, okay, this is my style. So
Yeah.
very beautifully put together lyrics, music, just all just really paints a picture in your head. And that story it's just so amazing.
Yeah, she's great at that. That's what I always say to people. Like, even if you're not a fan, you can't deny that the woman can write a song like nobody's business, right? I mean, she just paints such a beautiful picture, and that's what I love about New Year's Day specifically. Well, before we decide that this episode should be called Melancholy Monday, I figured that I would leave our listeners with some pure 90s ear candy, right? We've like definitely like loaded them up on like some 2017, 2018. I think the Joji song was from this year. But for my last pick, I dialed it all the way back to 1992 and went with a song called We Close Our Eyes by Susanna Hoffs. So, this song has been a favorite since I first heard it now 30 years ago. It's like terrible to do that math, but this is a song that was written by Danny Elfman, who's done, billions of film soundtracks and scores. He was in a super popular 80s band called Oingo Boingo. He has been around for a long time. And then it's sung by Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles, who, dominated music in the 80s. I think most people have heard of the Bangles at this point. And I just think that this song is so sweet. It's so uncomplicated. New Year's Day kind of talks about the reality of staying with someone through the hard stuff, like we chatted about. And this song is just, a musical interpretation of that dreamy way you feel when you first get together. This
Hmm.
is, I think that this one is just like so sweet and kind and innocent. Like it just takes me back to a really pure place. And then I love the line too in here where she says, "And if you think I'm worth it, and if you think it's not too late, you might start falling. If we don't try too hard, we might start falling in love." And you're just like, oh, like even when I read it, I'm like tingly. I'm like, it's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's just so sweet.
I
Did you know this song at all? I can't imagine that you did.
No, I did not. I had actually not heard of Susanna Hoffs, but as soon as I played this song, for whatever reason, and please don't call me crazy, but I got a lot of Stevie Nicks vibes from it.
Okay.
Just very like I want to say it was just the voice wise.
Hmm.
Music was very, yeah, like immediately was like, oh, this is like that early 90s vibe. Like this is
Yes.
good. And, just like I just want to like get on my bed and just start dancing and stomping my feet. It's a
Yeah.
really, really good song, but lyrically, I maybe read into it too much, but I got like a lot of kind of like the circle of life kind of vibes. Like, hey, like
Hmm.
we're gonna go through some good times, some bad times. Like, when she says, "I looked death in the face last night, saw
Yep.
him in the mirror, and I simply smiled." That's, kind of like, to me, was speaking in a sense where I'm gonna go through my life. It's not my time now to go, so I'm gonna have to live my life. And I'm just gonna make the most out of it. Another year has come and gone. We close our eyes, right? So you're kind of getting that feeling of, hey, like time doesn't stop for you, kind of thing. We just got to keep rolling with the punches. And I think that's a really positive message to kind of put across, especially with the vibe of the music, right? I mean, the music's
Yeah.
very poppy, it's very fun, and I think talking about something like that, at least that's the perspective that I got from it lyrically, was just really, really good. I think that was kind of something where you can relate to, because it's about, I mean, you can say it's about life, it's about death, it's about love, kind of just a circle of life in general, right? So I thought that was a really, really good song. I immediately hit liked on Spotify, so it's like it's one of the top of my list songs now. So it's a very, very well written and composed song. I just never had heard of Susanna, so really appreciate you for bringing that to light.
Oh, see, you're gonna get hit with all the 90s like pop divas now. You hit the like button, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, Well, and another good, just a glimpse too, like if that space felt like a genre or a time that you hadn't explored too much. Actually, that whole soundtrack, that I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, and I was talking about the song, and it's from the original movie soundtrack for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the
Mm.
Sarah Michelle Gellar TV show, but there was a movie before that that came out in the early 90s with Christy Swanson and Luke Perry.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is from that soundtrack. And if you go back and look at that soundtrack, it's got like every 90s, early 90s hit maker that you can think of. So that's a little tip for our listeners too. If you're dying for some early 90s pop, go check out the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie soundtrack.
Oh, thanks so much for that recommendation. I'll make sure to check that out, Jen.
Oh, Luis, thank you so much for sharing what you're listening to this week. And listeners, if you like this episode, let us know. And please be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix and drop us a DM. Please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.